narrative? What made you want to share your personal finances online and talk about personal finances on your different platforms, and why it's so important for you, or to you, should I say, to get this message out there online?
For me, it was all about representation and wanting to see more people like me talking about important money topics.
Yeah, I'm quite similar in terms of just representation. I hadn't particularly seen people specifically that looked like me and that were maybe of a similar demographic as well, or went through a similar journey. So I thought I would just take the courage and start my own channel.
For me, the biggest thing was I have a blog, and I basically write about becoming a successful single mother, because for me it was really, really important to have that narrative on there.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, thanks for stopping by. My name's Tolu, and on this channel I share content all around personal finance, budgeting, frugal living, and I show you how to live your best life on a budget. So today is an exciting day. It's a very special day. It's actually International Women's Day on the day of upload of this video. So it's an international day to celebrate the greatness of women, because yes, let's face it, women are great, we're amazing, and we do amazing things. And today's just a day to really celebrate that and highlight our accomplishments and highlight the great work that women are doing all around the world. So in celebration of International Women's Day, I thought it would be so amazing to bring together not one, not two, but three amazing women in the personal finance space on YouTube. So my first ever collaboration on my channel, and I'm so excited to have these three women join me. We had such an interesting conversation, and I believe that every single person watching this can take something from each one of our different stories. So just to tell you a little bit about the amazing women that joined me for the conversation, I'll link all their details below in the description box. They are Veronia Spain, Yvonne Huduma, and Deandra, also known as Finance D. I'll link all their YouTube channels below and all their contact details, so you definitely want to go and check them out. As part of this collaboration, we've all recorded a video having a different conversation about one money topic or another. But with that being said, grab yourself a drink, grab yourself some snacks, and even a pen and paper, and enjoy this conversation about money in celebration of International Women's Day. So as you know, obviously it's International Women's Day, and I thought it would be amazing to get a group of amazing women together in the personal finance space, particularly finance YouTubers, to kind of have a conversation about money. As you know, on my channel, I'm always talking about personal finance. So it would be good on an International Women's Day to have this conversation with more people than just myself, and really get different people's perspectives on personal finance and hear more about your different journeys, because I think obviously personal finance is personal and everybody's journey with personal finance is different. But I think it's good to kind of hear different people's stories and share different stories, because it is a taboo subject that we don't usually talk about. But I think when you hear different stories from people, where they've come from and how they've arrived at where they are, it kind of gives you that hope and inspiration, and you can really take different things and different learnings from them. So I thought, yeah, it would be really great to have this conversation with you ladies. But obviously, before we dive into all the questions that I have for you, it would be good if you could, in a couple of words, literally tell the guys a little bit about yourself, your channel, and what it is you do.
Hi guys, so my name is Veronia. So very similar to Tolu, I also talk about personal finance, and I also talk about careers as well. So I'm mainly on YouTube, and I've been doing that for I think about 9-10 months now. So that is just something that I really am very passionate about talking. I'm really passionate about talking about money and just all of that stuff, and financial independence as well.
Yep, and I'm Yvonne Huduma, and I am just this mum on the internet who's on a journey to financial freedom. And so I share all the tips and tricks that I'm learning around saving money, making money, embedding frugal living into my life, in the hopes that those tricks will also help you on your journey with your finances.
Amazing. Last but not least.
Yes, hi. So I'm Deandra, but I go by the name of Finance D on YouTube and Instagram. And like these lovely ladies, I talk about personal finances. I talk a lot about the FIRE movement, specific to the UK, and I talk about investing as well, and budgeting. I don't have any frugal living tips the way that these wonderful ladies do, so don't come to my channel for that. But I do like talking about personal finances as well, and I'm really happy that we're having this conversation today.
Yeah, me too. So to kick it off, actually, the first conversation that I want us to have, or the first question I really want us to explore, is a little bit about your own personal relationships with money growing up. So what were you like with your finances? And when I say growing up, probably from childhood, you can give a brief overview versus your early teens, 20s? Just a little overview of how your relationship with money has been over the years.
Yeah, so in terms of my sort of journey, so we never really spoke about money in my family. The only thing that I kind of realized but didn't know at the time is that my mum actually would save for a lot of things, which was quite good. So every time we would go on holiday, she would actually save for that money, and she would actually plan how long we had until the holiday before actually, you know, purchasing and letting us go on holiday. But I didn't actually realize that, and she never actually spoke to us about it, so I'd never really learned about saving or even investing money and you know, building wealth and all of that stuff. So I used to just spend a lot of money actually, just on, I don't know, I could never tell you what I spent my money on, whether it be food or clothes or anything like that. So I think it took until around after university, when I'd been working for a couple of years, for me to understand actually how to manage my money and how to take control of my finances. But before that, yeah, I'd never really saved money, and yeah, it just wasn't really great in terms of, you know, how I managed my money overall.
I'm glad you said that, because the second part of the question was actually, what was your relationship like with money to begin with, and how has it changed since then? So you basically touched on that it changed like after you went to like university and stuff like that. Was there anything in particular that made that shift happen?
Yeah, so I think it was when I started working. So I'd been working, I think, for a few months in my first job, after sort of university and after my master's. And because I was living on my own, I was living in shared accommodation, I don't think I really had anything else to do in the evenings, because it was just me. And so I realized that I think I just started watching YouTube videos about, you know, personal finance, and then I started reading more books. And then as soon as I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and Meaningful Money Handbook, my mindset completely changed. And then I was now going down a rabbit hole in terms of just being obsessed with personal finance, and yeah, that's just how it's just played a part in sort of my own journey now. So yeah, it was a really good change for me.
Amazing. Same question to you, Dee.
Yeah, so I was thinking, I've kind of had a change, I guess, throughout my childhood. So pre my parents getting divorced, um, money was quite, I guess, money was there and available for whatever we really needed. And I would say I just had a mindset of, okay, if I need money, I could get it, which wasn't a healthy mindset. I could just ask my parents and they'd give it. Post divorce, this changed. And so when my mum became a single mum, that changed because it was just her income and it was no longer in abundance as much. And I realized then at the age of, I think it was 11, that money did not grow on trees the way that I thought it did growing up. So my mindset shifted. And so after that, I would say I really understood the value of money more. And it kind of trickled into my early adulthood, understanding the value of money. I would say my relationship really went downhill with money during my master's program, and it's such a shame that I allowed that time of my life for it to go downhill. I had lots of reasons why, but yeah, I was living way outside of my means in certain things. So I, for some reason, decided to take an Uber everywhere.
Oh my God.
Uber everywhere. So I was living in Paris because that's where I studied, and the Ubers in Paris are really nice. They just always come up in these really nice Mercedes, and I just felt great. And so I would Uber everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, so it just was a bit of a weird phase in my life. I just kind of went a bit out of my norm. And then afterwards, I got back to myself after I racked up a lot of debt. And yeah, so today I would say I have a good relationship with money. I'm really passionate about not abusing it and making sure it works for me as well, by investing. And yeah, I just think my relationship has really changed, but sometimes it's in those you need to have those low moments in order to kind of come back to yourself.
Yes.
And so it's part of the journey, I guess.
100%. And last but not least, Yvonne.
Yeah, so for me, I think I've gone through like the spectrum of like the penny pincher all the way to like the big spender, because when I was growing up, and I think it's the byproduct of being raised by an accountant and a mathematician. So it's just like, you know, you're taught that money is really, really important, and things add up and things are taken away and all that stuff. So growing up, I was a little bit too much on the penny pincher side, and I would just basically try and save as much as possible. And it was just like, no, saving is more of a priority than spending. I'm going to do that. And then, which is actually really interesting because my siblings are like completely different. So everybody's a little bit different. So that's a different conversation itself. And then I kind of went to higher education, and I was really, really good with my bachelor's. And then with my master's, I had a little bit of money, and after I finished my master's, I decided, you know what, I'm going to treat myself. And I think that's when the downhill came. And I basically
just kept treating yourself.
Pretty much. So I wanted to treat myself for having completed this really, really difficult program. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to take 4 months off and I'm just going to travel the world. And now that was the beginning of bad, because it was just like, you can go out in the world. Things are cheap, but things add up. Right. And you see the world, which is beautiful. And I think it was at that point that I was just like, I need to use my money to get the most out of it, basically get the most experience out of it that I can. So that meant, you know, when I was traveling, I would just enjoy everything. When I came back, I was like, oh, I'm living in London. Do you have any restaurant there? I need to go see this restaurant. I need to go see this play. I need to do this. And so although I always made sure that I wasn't in debt, or I didn't pick up too much debt. I wasn't very good at managing my money. And then I had my son, and then I found out I was going to be a single mom, and then the reality really hit me. And I was kind of stuck between two places where it's like, ooh, baby, ooh, let's buy all this nice stuff for this baby. And then the reality of, but childcare costs £1,200 a month. How are you going to afford that? So it now got to the point where now I'm actually at this place where I can manage my money. And I've basically taken the principles of my penny pinching ways, and I've taken the principles of my overspending ways. And I'm in a happy medium place where I kind of understand money, I understand the principles of it, and I understand how it works and how to make the most out of it, and just use it and utilize it to the best of my ability.
Amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing to hear all your different journeys and see how, you know, your relationship with money, some of you maybe didn't start off so well, but it's changed. Some of you, it's like you started off well, had a bit of a mishap in the middle, and then found yourself towards the end, and you've steered yourself back on course. And I think that's an important point to note, is that doesn't matter where you are on your financial journey, things can change if you make that decision to change it. So you don't just have to stay stuck in that position and think, you know, this is it, I'm in debt, I can't get out, or I'm bad with money, I'm always going to be bad with money. No, you can actually proactively take those steps to change that relationship with money. And I guess my situation was very similar to you guys in that, yes, growing up, in fact, I'd say money was more scarce in my household. Well, it felt like it at the time anyway, because anything I wanted to do, no, you can't do it. So literally everything was a no. There was never a yes for anything that I wanted to do or anywhere I wanted to go. And it was like that for a while, actually. And then I remember thinking, as soon as I turned 16, I'm going to get a job. I could not wait for that national insurance card to come through. As soon as it came through, I was that first person in up West End, handing out my CV to all the different stores, and I got my first job literally at 16 at Madhouse. It's closed down now, but yeah, that was my first job, and that's when I first started earning money and having my own money for myself. And because I was so used to not having money that when I finally had that money, mate, you couldn't tell me nothing. I was a big spender. I just used to spend all that money. Unfortunately for me, I was working in the clothing store as well, so I would get paid and spend all that money, like literally give it back to the store. So I was basically working for free in a nutshell. And that was kind of how things progressed throughout my teens and 20s. And then I got into debt, quite a lot of debt at one point, and then I was able to turn it around by reading different resources. So Dave Ramsey's book, The Total Money Maker, but that was the book that literally transformed my relationship with money. I would say started me on that journey to realizing that actually, Solly, you don't have to spend every penny you earn. Like, you don't have to spend all your money. You can say no sometimes. It's okay to like prioritize your finances and your financial future. And I think, yeah, that's how my relationship changed. And that's when I started embarking on acquiring even more knowledge about personal finance, about living below your means. That's something that sounds so elementary now, but at the time it didn't make sense to me. It's like, why is there money just sitting in my bank account? Let me spend that. Money needs to go because more money's coming next month. That was my mindset back then. And it's like, yeah, it's been a whole renewing of my mind. And yeah, my relationship with money has definitely transformed a lot over the past, I'd say 4 or 5 years. And it's still an ongoing thing. So yeah, no, that's, yeah, good to hear. And then the next question I have, oh, this is a good one. So what would you say have been your biggest money mistakes so far in life? Would you say biggest money mistake and the biggest money mistake to start there?
Yeah, I think for me, I kind of shared it already, my Uber trips. I guess I didn't share to the extent, but I calculated at the end when I moved back home, and it was around 2,000 euros that I had spent in Ubers in the space of 2 years. I just was like, that's insane. That's ridiculous. And that was just the Ubers. Obviously, there was other expenses. That was just Uber. And so I think, yeah, I guess my biggest, that period was my biggest financial mistake, but also my biggest financial blessing in a way.
Yes.
Because it just showed me how much I didn't like being in debt, and how very easy it is to spend it and so hard to pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just felt like nothing in terms of spending it. Like nothing. And in terms of paying it off, it just was like an uphill battle. It just felt like it was constant trying. So yeah, I would say that period is my biggest mistake. And yeah,
and lessons you learned from it. So then how would you say you were able to motivate yourself during that time to pay off the debt? Because I know for a lot of people probably watching, they may be in that position where they are in debt and they know that they need to pay it off. So what kept you motivated to keep going to pay it, would you say?
Well, a big motivation for me was actually once I got engaged. So yeah, because after like sitting down and talking through our finances, I had a lot more debt than my now husband, who and I just didn't think it was fair coming into marriage with all this debt, and he wasn't. So it really changed my mindset and his kind of approach, I guess, to finances. He really doesn't live above his means at all. And I just had to kind of reel myself back in terms of not living above my means. So definitely my marriage motivated me to get it together. And just the fact that I was getting older. I mean, I was like, I'm getting older now. I don't have time to be playing games anymore. And when I want to have kids, I don't want to be in a situation where they have to feel a struggle. So I'm going to do what I can now so that they hopefully don't have to feel that.
No, makes sense. And same question to you ladies in terms of biggest money mistakes you made and lessons you learned from it.
So I would say the biggest money mistake was not having an emergency fund available, because for me, like I think it's been mentioned a few times, it was just like, the money's in my account, what can I buy? And you kind of get a glimpse of it in like the last bit of maternity where you have no money coming in whatsoever, and it's like the last 9 months you should have been using your money better. You should have been using your maternity pay better. You should have saved up beforehand, and those 3 months are really a massive struggle. And I know it's only 3 months, but for some people it's a long time.
That's a long time, trust me.
Yeah. And then in that moment, you find out, for me, I found out, you're going to be a single mum and everything is on you now. And so not having something buffing you up on the side becomes a real massive mistake. And so for me, I learned that actually having a little bit of money aside is so important. You cannot be spending everything you have, and it's so important to have that on the side. So for me, I would always say, whether you've got £1 million or you've got £1, it's really, really important to save towards an emergency fund, because you just never know what life is going to throw at you. So
%.
Yeah, so I would probably say mine is how I basically got into debt. So I had an overdraft, and I also had my car finance as well. The overdraft, I had no excuse. I was going on holidays pretending like I had money. I didn't have money. That was during my final year at university, I think.
Yeah.
And I got my car finance. I had quite an old car. I had like a car that I think was more than 10 years old, that I was then, and this was my sort of first kind of full-on graduate job, and I had to drive to work because of where I work, and I would see all these people with these new cars, and there was me driving with my old banger, and I was like, oh, this doesn't look great, you know, like. And I think again that kind of image perception kind of came into my mind, where I thought, oh no, I now have to get a new car, and obviously didn't save for it, and then ended up getting it on finance. And I think when I sort of, and I basically I started to learn about personal finance after I'd got the car, and then I think the turning point for me was, if there's a time where I lost my job, how am I going to afford the payments? And especially with the overdraft, it was interest free for a certain amount of time, but there was going to come to a point where it's not going to be interest free, and I would have to pay interest. And I thought, well, how am I going to make the payments? How much am I going to be paying every single month? So I think for me, that was a major turning point to understand, actually, I don't feel amazing to know that I have these payments, and if anything happened to my income and I couldn't afford to make those payments, that's going to have a massive impact on my credit score and things like that. And so I think that's really what helped me to keep me motivated to actually start paying it off.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess my one would probably be my when we bought our first home together, and we took out a couple of loans to refurbish the house. And I think there's nothing wrong in terms of taking out a refurbishment loan. I wouldn't say that in itself was the bad part to do it, because it's what you call good debt, because it was calculated debt and it made sense at the time. But I think the issue for us at the time was the fact that we had made these plans based on a plan that wasn't concrete. So the plan was basically, we'll take out these loans and then we'll get lodgers in who will then give us the money to pay off the loans. But then we weren't able to secure lodgers, which meant we had the mortgage fee and the loans for us to pay out of our own income. And then at that time, I went on maternity leave, and then I had my second son. So it's like we dropped from 2 incomes to 1, and statutory maternity pay, which is peanuts. And then we have this loan on top that we need to pay for. So I think at the time, in hindsight, what we should have done is probably not taken out those loans and just done the house up bit by bit, because it wasn't necessary to do a whole full-on refurb straight away. If we had actually saved up and done it bit by bit, room by room, we could have still got to that same result without having to have taken on that much debt and getting ourselves into so much financial problems. So I think, yeah, definitely lesson to take away from that is to not just have, well, number one, I'd say, is to have a plan B and a plan C. So don't just make one plan and think that, yeah, this is it, it's going to work. It's like, okay, what's going to happen if that plan doesn't work? What's the second plan? What's the backup plan? So I think that was definitely a big lesson that we took away from that. And yeah, not everybody wants to live with people with their kids. So yeah, if you want to get lodgers in, make sure you do your research before you just assume that they're going to pay, because yeah, they might not want to.
Yeah, funny enough, I did become a lodger whilst I was trying to pay off my debt.
And, oh, did you?
Yeah, the reason why I did that is because they had a small kid, it meant that they had the rent price really, really low. And so I knew I needed to pay off my debt and I needed to make a sacrifice. So I decided.
Where was you at the time when we were looking for a lodger? You could have came to live with me.
Should have been me, yeah.
Yeah, that I couldn't find, literally, you couldn't find anybody that wanted to live with us and our kids. You'd have people call up saying that, yeah, can I come and see the room? And they'll hear the baby cry in the background, like, oh, you got kids? Oh, no, sorry, don't want it. Oh, this is sad. But it wasn't bad, was it, Veronia, living with somebody in a charge? It's fine.
No,
isn't it?
No, you get used to it.
Exactly. Okay, cool. And so the next question I would have actually is, what advice would you give to your younger self about money? Obviously, having the experiences that you've had and how far you guys have come now, looking back in retrospect, what information do you think at the age of maybe 17, 18 would have been helpful for you to know?
Ooh, before you go to university, educate yourself. Because I think, especially at uni, I think because you don't have that much money, sort of given to you. A lot of us, when I went to university, you had sort of maintenance loans that were given to you, but that loan, part of it was to pay for your accommodation if you were living away from university. And I think a lot of us kind of had like £3,000 just drop into our account, and you think you're rich, and you start celebrating, and they drop it, in the same time as Freshers Week as well. So you have this. I remember my one dropped, I think, when it was Freshers Week at a university event, and I'd gone to the cash machine and I saw like £2,000, and from then,
imagine
everyone got so excited.
Yeah.
So I think the one thing I would say is start when you're, maybe at school. Even if you're not going to university, for example, if you start working after school, when you start getting that paycheck, because you haven't seen that amount of money in your bank account before, you get so excited. And the same thing happened when I first started working as well. So I think for me is start small. When you are maybe in school, start trying to manage your money and educate yourself so that it's a bit easier when you transition either to, working or going to university, for example.
Yeah, I would say, to my younger self, start investing from as young as possible. I think of how much money I've wasted over the years, and it wouldn't have had to have been a huge amount that I invested. I could have invested when I had these student jobs. I could have put £10 aside a month, or $10, whatever it was. I could have put that aside a month, and now it would be worth a lot more than what it was back then. But I would say, get investing. And one thing that really encourages me sometimes is seeing people who are teenagers, late teens, 18, 20, 21, who are joining certain personal finance groups. So I'm on a financial independence Facebook group, and sometimes I see people at 18 and at 20 saying, hey, here's my situation. And I'm thinking, oh my God, you are so ahead of the game, and they are just so interested from that young age to get their finances together. And so for me, it really shows that you're never too young. So if you are younger, start as you mean to go on. That is just the best approach. Start as you mean to go on, and you're never too young. And as you said, just learn things from a young age. There are so many books that are easy to understand. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a fantastic book. The Richest Man in Babylon is a fantastic book. Even the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover, just a good way to understand, the impact of debt and what it can do and trying to get out of it. So knowledge, start as young as possible and invest, I would say.
And the younger you are, the more risk you could potentially take, because you don't have, a lot of, things that you have to think about, in terms of like a mortgage or family, for example. So you've got the opportunity there.
Yeah, so I would say I would genuinely tell myself that you are time rich, and use that time the most effective that you can. So that's around learning about personal finance, investing. Start as many businesses as you can if you want to. I mean, not everybody's an entrepreneur of mine, but you're very time rich and you've got the internet at your hands. So do everything that you can to set yourself up financially. It's now that I look back and I'm like, I had a lot of time and I could have done a lot of things that could make life so much easier for me now. And it's like, trying to balance everything now is a lot harder. But, if I was 18 and young, I'm lively, sprightly, and, you pick things up really quickly, so that's what I would say. Just make the most of your time.
That's really, 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 really good points you guys have raised. And I guess the one that I would add to it is don't spend all your money. Like Tolu, you don't have to spend it all. It's not every penny that enters your hand that you have to spend. Like set some of it aside, and better yet, do what Dee said and actually start investing that money. The younger you are, when you're making those risks, there's not really much repercussions of you taking those risks because you're young, generally speaking, and you're at home. So while you can, you're in your parents' house, just do what you want, whether it's starting a business, start investing, start saving, just start really thinking about what you want your financial future to look like, and don't just necessarily follow the status quo and do what everybody else is doing. Try and find your own way and don't just follow the crowd. So that's definitely advice I'd give to the younger me. Don't know if I would have listened, to be honest, but that's the advice I would give it there. So okay, so
that's a good question. That's a good question, Tolu, because sometimes I do sit here and I'm like, if only I could go back like 3 years, I would do this with the knowledge that I have now. And It's a
No,
really good
it's
question.
so true. I know it's annoying because hindsight is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Because like now I'm trying to share this knowledge with my niece and nephews. They're like 17 and 15. They're not trying to hear it. So it's like they have to kind of live life and have their experiences and then learn from their mistakes too. And I guess that's the
Yeah,
journey we all
same
have
thing
to go on.
happened to my sister. She's 17, and I even bought her there's a Rich Dad book for teenagers,
Oh,
and
no
I
way.
bought the book for her to say, yeah, look, start reading. Ask
No.
me if she's finished reading it. I think
It's still in the package.
and then it's just been chilling there.
Yeah, that's the problem. You just have to kind of experience life yourself and make your own mistakes. But all we can do is share the knowledge, share the information, share the resources. So at least they can't now be in 10 years' time be like, oh, if only my older sister had told me or my parents had told me. It's like, oh,
Right?
it's all on you. Do you know what I mean? So no, definitely. So if somebody wants to get started with personal finance, they like watching YouTube, they've just come across this video and they're like, okay, so how do I get started? What advice would you give to them, and how would you advise they get started when it comes to their financial journeys?
I guess I would say just start with books and podcasts or whatever resource is available to you. So, some people prefer to read maybe a blog article. So if that's the case, there are plenty of blogs. Some people like to listen. If that's the case, then listen to a podcast or an Audible book. I have Audible books. It just works for me to just keep moving while I'm listening to a book. If you prefer the visual, then on YouTube, there's lots of people to, watch their videos and hear what they have to say. I would say just start where it's comfortable for you. And sometimes people recommend books, and not everyone likes to read, and that's the reality. And I don't think you should be shamed for not liking to read. That's totally up to you. But if you don't like to read, then find an alternative. Find something else that you can do to get the education. And I say that because at the very foundation, you have to have financial knowledge. And I'm not saying things are complicated, but just understand the basics of debt, savings, and an emergency fund, as they've said, is really important. Understand those basics, and then from there you can build upon it. I think the interesting thing with personal finances is that as you learn, it's like it becomes like a building blocks. And so you learn one thing and then you learn another thing. Before you know it, you've built a whole tower, and you're like, wow, I know actually quite a bit now. And it all forms part of the bigger picture. So just start small wherever you're at, whatever you need to gain knowledge on, and then work your way up from there is what I would recommend as a tip.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, Google as well, if you maybe Google personal finance basics for beginners or how to budget, how to save money, you'll find a lot of materials, whether that be podcasts or videos or books. So that's something that you could do. You could also maybe join Facebook groups as well. So you'll find that there are a lot of Facebook groups to do with personal finance, to do with money, to do with financial independence. And there's a lot of people that are happy to talk through their experiences and help you along your journey as well. So that's something you could potentially do.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that's been said. Probably the only thing I would add on it is to act really quickly on your personal finance. It's personal finance because it's personal to you. So I totally agree. It's really, really important to use the resources that are available. Get as much education and knowledge as you can. Join as many groups. Always strive to learn as much as you can. I don't think anybody will ever get to the point where they totally know everything there is to know about finances. But I think it's also really important that you look at the personal aspect of it and not put off, because it's also really easy to just be like, no, I need to learn more, before you actually sit down and really look at your own finances. So I think whilst you're getting the knowledge of knowing, understanding finance, also do the personal bit. Sit down and have a look at your bank statements, go through them, see where there is places where you are wasting money. No one can sit here and say that they've got their finances up to scratch. Even up to now, I sit and I go through my bank statements, and there's always a line of something that will come up, and I'm like, I didn't know I had signed up to that, And at this point, you would think I'd get it. But so get to know your finances, and then you can look at different tips and tricks. So as you are learning about all the different personal finance techniques out there, see what works best for you. But totally understand there's no shame in if you've picked up a lot of debt, but just understand where your starting point is and make the movement as you are gaining knowledge as well.
literally bang on the money, guys. Because I would have said basically what you guys have said, so there's no need for me to repeat what you said. It's just literally a case of looking at your situation, looking at where you are now, finding all the resources available for you, and then looking at your situation. So how much do I earn? How much of my expenses? Where's my money been going for the past month or two? And where do I want it to go moving forward? And just kind of getting a budget in place. I always want to plug budgets, but yeah, get yourself a budget, get yourself a plan for that money. And then yeah, that would help you on that financial journey. Like Yvonne said, budgeting is an ongoing thing. Like, yes, you have the budget in place, but you can still make mistakes, and that's totally fine. It's a journey, it's a learning curve. But the main thing is being intentional and being proactive with your personal finances and not just ignoring the situation. So whether it is the case of you're in debt and you want to pay off that debt, face it head on and don't ignore it, because ignoring it is not going to make it go away. Just really be intentional and be proactive about transforming your financial situation, and you will be able to do it. It's going to take time, it's going to take many steps for you to get there, but it's better to at least start today, because every day that you delay it, it's a delay in you getting better with that financial situation that you're in. So the last question that I have for you guys is just in terms of you sharing personal finances online. Obviously, it's International Women's Day today, the day of upload of this video. And I just wanted to really understand from you guys' perspective, what made you want to share your personal finances online and talk about personal finances on your different platforms, and why it's so important for you, or to you, should I say, to get this message out there online?
Yeah, I think this is such a good question. For me, it was all about representation and wanting to see more people like me talking about important money topics. And so I just wanted to be a person in this space talking about finances. And it's something that I do in my life on a personal level with my friends and my family. And so I wanted to share that beyond them. I wanted to share that to as many people as I could. And YouTube is a free platform. And so I thought, well, this is a fantastic place to do it. And I know that I like watching YouTube videos, and there were certain things that I felt like I could add to the space. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to do it. And another thing is, I wanted to, I guess, show that I'm practicing what I'm preaching in a way. So, you know, the good thing about YouTube is that it holds you accountable in certain things. There's an it's almost acts as an accountability partner, because you're like, I can't slip and go back to what I was before. I need to stay on track, because there's people rooting for you, and you know, they're coming to your channel to hear tips and see what you're doing and how you're doing. So that accountability is a big part as well, that I didn't realize until I started YouTube.
Yeah, I'm quite similar in terms of just representation. I think when I first started on the journey and I was looking through YouTube, a lot of the content was US based actually. And obviously we're from the UK, and there were only a couple of channels at the time, The Humble Penny and Mama Furfur, that were really talking about personal finance. So I hadn't particularly seen people specifically that looked like me and that were maybe of a similar demographic as well, or went through a similar journey. So I thought I would just take the courage and start my own channel. And yeah, because I'd sort of gone through the journey, I'd made specific mistakes as well that a lot of people will make, and I think I really wanted people to learn from those mistakes. And again, very similar in terms of, I see YouTube as a very accountable an accountability partner, especially because I tend to try and show my journey as well, to say this is what I'm teaching and this is how I'm living it. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Same thing. I think it was a bit about representation, but for me, the biggest thing was I have a blog, and I basically write about becoming a successful single mother, because for me, it was really, really important to have that narrative on there, because I genuinely don't believe that just because you're a single mother. And I met so many who were like, no, it's not a possibility that I could ever become financially successful, because obviously success, you define success however way you want to define it. But from the financial aspect of it, there wasn't anybody talking about that. And I thought, you know what, I haven't gotten there yet, but I am on a journey. And I also, for myself, wanted to see my growth as I got to financial independence. So in the hope of not only helping other people and sharing the knowledge that I got, but even for me as an archive to go back and be like, wait, I started this journey in 2017 and look at how far this has been. And hopefully that would act as a testimony to also encourage other people. So for me, that was why it was really, really important for me to share my journey. And
Amazing.
highly, highly caveating the fact that I am not a financial advisor whatsoever, but these are just things that I'm learning. I'll make some mistakes here and there, but you know, this is just the nature of the journey that I'm on.
Oh, amazing. No, thank you, ladies, for sharing. I'm just conscious that the time may cut us out, but just to say thank you guys so much for having this conversation with me. And I definitely don't want this to be the end for us to have these kind of conversations. I think we need to keep these conversations going, keep sharing our stories, keep sharing our journeys, because other people are going to learn and take something away from that information. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the conversation as much as I enjoyed having the conversation. I did tell you it was going to be amazing. I'm sure you agree that I didn't tell you no lies. So if you enjoyed this video, you've made it this far, do me a favor and give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and their channels too. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and I will see you on my next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.